Okay, now you should be able to hear me. Sorry. Haha. So what's going to happen is I'm going to draw some goths. Hello. Welcome. My name is Ben Walker Story. Welcome to Let's Draw Goths. If this is your first time joining me, what's going to happen is I'm going to draw some goths, and while I do, I'm going to recall a few stories from my life. This time, 5 times when I 5 times I said something stupid to a celebrity. All right, in no particular order, here are 5 times I said something stupid to a celebrity. Here we go. Okay, this is chronological order. First time I said something stupid to a celebrity, I was probably 13, 12, something like that. And I went to my first Comic-Con. Now, this wasn't the one in San Diego. This was one of those small ones where... This is one of those small ones, you know, in my hometown where it was probably, you know, less than 1,000 people showing up for this thing. And guess who was there celebrating the impending wedding of Spider-Man? None other than Stan Lee was there. And this is when he would just like do panels and go out and talk to people without charging them for a signature or anything like that. It was pretty small potatoes compared to what he was doing at the end of his life there with the signings and such. Anyway, I think first he did like a little hangout time with people where he was like looking at portfolios and just chatting with people. And I showed him my drawings. I had just been drawing comics for about a year, just weird little underground type things, though I didn't know what underground comics meant at that point. Oops. So that was fine, and he said, like, keep drawing, you know? Cool. Stan Lee wants me to keep drawing. And then they had like a panel with, you know, celebrating Spider-Man's marriage to Gwen Stefani or something. And then they opened it up to questions. And I was like, you know, I do have a question. And 13-year-old me stood up. And I was like, how come in the cartoon, like, Spider-Man, he, you know, he'll go over the ocean and he can like swing his webs and just go over the ocean to Hawaii or something. I don't remember where Spider-Man was going. There's no buildings in the ocean. I mean, not as far as we know, not above the surface, I mean. And Stan Lee just goes, "It's a cartoon, kid." And everybody applauded and was like, "Yeah!" And I felt super stupid, as I should. And so I sat down and was like to my friend, I was like, "Yeah, that's a good answer. I get it." Number 2. I guess I'm going 1 to 5. Number 2. Have you ever like had a story that was really interesting to you, something really weird and odd that happened to you, like when you were alone, and you just think that was like so interesting? What are the odds, you know? And then you tell that story to somebody, and when it comes out of your mouth, as it's coming out of your mouth, you realize this is not a good story for other people to hear at all. Well, that happened to me. I had done the poster for a Sketchfest event called, it was like the reunion of Waiting for Guffman with Christopher Guest and the whole cast of Waiting for Guffman was gonna watch the movie with everybody, and then they were gonna answer questions after the movie. Anyway, I love all Christopher Guest movies. You know, Spinal Tap, if you're too young and you haven't seen these movies, they invented the whole mockumentary thing, first with Spinal Tap, which Christopher Guest was just a star in and one of the improvisers. I think Meathead directed that one. But anyway, let's see. I think this is okay. And I'm going to do, hold on, I'm going to talk art for a second. I'm going to do a little switcheroo here, just like Martha Stewart would when she's baking some kind of muffins or something on the Today Show. You know, there's always one that's ready to be iced or whatever. You know, iced muffins. I'll just switch this out with one that's dry, and then maybe we can get back to this one later. And by the way, you know, obviously if you like this, subscribe and do all the bells and stuff. But otherwise, you know, I don't really like to advertise or anything like that. So this is just to relax and have fun. Okay, where was I? So I had made this poster, a couple of them actually. I was selling them as a little set. It came with like a little fake playbill, since Waiting for Guffman is about a hometown musical being put on. Oh, okay, so now I'm going to put away the watercolors for a second and draw with ink. Starting now. Okay, so I'm standing there alone, because what happens is, I didn't even really think about this back then, was you would do the merch for this event because you're a big fan. You're like, I'll do the merch for that, which is great, except then you kind of have to hang out in the lobby with your merch, or you know, you bring some kind of helper crony to sit with your table and make sure nothing like walks away or anything. Well, I didn't have a helper, so I just hung out in the lobby waiting for it to be over, and this woman walks in. You know, the event is already, I mean, the movie had already started. This woman walks in and she's like, oh, neat, I love the poster. She like looks down, she's like looking down at my table, and all I kind of see is like blonde hair, and then she looks up and she's got like big sunglasses on, but I'm like, oh, it's Parker Posey. It's Parker Posey. You know, she's the queen of indie movies. She's got that real cute but real look, you know. She was one of my like top crushes, celebrity crushes growing up, and I guess not growing up. We're almost the same age probably. But anyway, ever since I saw Party Girl, I was a fan. And so I've got her ear for a minute, and I'm like, hey, it's so funny, but when I was drawing you the other day, I was working on this poster, I was listening to a podcast, and it was with Jimmy Fallon as the guest. I don't remember what the podcast was, but he was telling the story about being in a dance club, and one of his friends got hit in the head somehow. I don't know if he did a stage dive or I don't know, but he was bleeding from the head, and he had to leave all of a sudden, even though he was dancing with this super cute young woman. And it turned out, you know, years later that woman was Parker Posey. Now, for me to be like drawing Parker Posey, and then this random story comes on about Parker Posey, I was like, oh, what are the chances? You know? But I mean, like, I don't know. Didn't recognize the story, nothing. And then she was gone. So that was cool. Although she was on, I found a clip, she was on the Jimmy Fallon show a couple of years after that, and he told the story much better than I did. And they were old friends, so that, you know, she seemed to remember the story that time. Good thing my neighbors like to ride their tiny motorcycles on Fridays. That's super distracting. Anyway, on this show, it's called Let's Draw Goths because, let's face it, it rolls off the tongue, you know. But I really want to explore lots of subcultures and various looks of the 80s, you know, or 90s mostly. And I'll draw from old photos I find. Sometimes I'll draw from people's like selfies or whatever that they took in their bedroom, but mostly I like, you know, the stuff that you would have had to take to the drugstore and get developed at some point. Just snapshots. This time I'm making them up as I go. No reference. Our number 3. Number 3. Mark Mothersbaugh. Said something dumb to Mark Mothersbaugh once. He was having this like art show because, okay, if you're not familiar, he's the lead singer and does a lot of keyboard type stuff for Devo. And then he went on to do all kinds of stuff for movies and a lot of Wes Anderson movies. Let's see, he did Pee-wee's Playhouse, not the movie, but he did the Playhouse, and etc. Rugrats. I was a big fan. And this was at the height of Devo fandom for me. I kind of always knew of them, but kind of checked out the whole catalog kind of late in my life, in my like 30s, and kind of was late to all that Devo stuff. So I go to this art show that he's having. It has nothing to do with his music. He's doing like weird manipulated photos and stuff and doodles. And I got to talk to Mark Mothersbaugh. You know, I got to say hi and say what a fan I am and everything. Well, I can't get in with him because this, like, I would say an aging punk type guy. You know, he was a little older than me at the time, probably still is. And I think he still had like a big mohawk and everything, sort of like this with the crazy colors. This guy wouldn't leave Mark Mothersbaugh alone. He was, you know, when this sort of thing, if you've never been to, you know, an art opening or gathering this small with, there's going to be, you know, if there's this celebrity, everybody's going to want to talk to them. And they're trying to like play it cool and just mingle. So you got to have sort of take your turn and say hi and then give the person their space so they can keep talking to other people. Well, this guy kept talking to Mark, and he was very manic. I don't know if he was like bipolar or if he was on some kind of medication or what, but he was very animated. I'm gonna let this dry for a minute. So I could tell that Mark Mothersbaugh was becoming agitated from this guy. Oh no, did I lose my good pen? Yeah. Maybe this one. I could tell that he was agitated, you know, he was uncomfortable. And I assume that Mark Mothersbaugh is sort of that quintessential, you know, celebrity nerd guy. You know, I don't think he has like necessarily the best social skills, even though he's super famous. To be expected. So he just seemed really uncomfortable by this punk guy. And at one point, the punk guy was like, let's get another picture. And his girlfriend goes to take the picture, and he goes for Mark's neck and is like, ha, pretending to strangle Mark Mothersbaugh of Devo. Like, it's all in good fun. But I didn't, you know, I didn't want that to sway me. So even though shortly after Mark was going to like leave, is that showing up even? That's a shame. I don't know what happened to my good pen. So I was like, oh God, he's leaving. I gotta say hi. Maybe I'll just use a pencil. How bad could that possibly look? Blue? No. Blue pencil's great for underdrawing. Not great for what I'm doing right now. So Mark starts to step out of this place. It was just a Super 7, this little place. Back then it was in Japantown in San Francisco. And they'd sell like Japanese toys and Godzillas and stuff. Anyway, he steps out of there. Looks pretty done for the night. And I'm like, oh, I gotta go say hi. So I go say hi to him. And I'm like, oh, I'm just such a big fan. He's like, cool. And then he points behind me and goes like, and it's great that you found parking. And I turn around confused because I didn't park back there. Well, he was making a joke. There was a giant RV, like Willie Nelson's van, that was parked back there. Yeah, good joke. And it was one of those things where it's like, leave him laughing and move on. That's all the interaction that needed to be. But this was before I learned that you gotta just leave it. Just leave it short and good. So I was like, hey, you guys were playing this music in there that was the Devo Easy Listening, but it was like new tracks, right? Stuff that wasn't on the Devo Easy Listening album. That was my first Devo album that I just listened to that for a long time. It's just sort of electronic music versions of all their best hits. So I kind of wanted to use that to be an in to keep talking to him. Well, he wasn't interested in talking about that, and he physically grabbed his like PR guy, manager type person, and he's very strong. He moved the guy in between the two of us. So now I'm like face to face with the manager guy. He's like, talk to this guy about that kind of stuff. Blew it. Then I had to pretend to still be interested in buying this like $200 set of easy listening recordings. So that turned out to be an expensive trip. I didn't really buy it. Let's see here. Number 5. Jeez, I'm tearing through these. Only half hour into this thing. Well, luckily, 1, 2, 3. Number 4. Okay, good. Because number 5 is a long one. 4, I've made a lot of posters for comedians, you know, for their comedy gigs. And I did one for Brian Posehn, a famous comedian. He loves death metal, redhead, you know him. Did it for Punchline? No, Cobb's in San Francisco. And Brian Posehn was exactly like I would have guessed. He was nice enough and chill, and probably kind of standoffish, like any sort of nerdy geek culture kind of guy, but also like a celebrity type person. You got to be kind of guarded to make sure you're not looking for any new best friends, is what I'm saying. Not conducting interviews for that. So he would come out into the lobby after every one of his shows and talk to people as they left the club and sign any posters that were purchased, which is the way to sell these posters. If nobody's signing them, you're probably not going to sell much. So that was fine. There wasn't a whole lot of interaction, but he was nice enough. Then, after it's all over, he was nice enough to invite me to hang out in the green room with all of his Bay Area friends. I think when comedians tour, they probably have friends from all over, and the local friends show up. Dang it, I wish I had another pen. This one. The local friends show up and they catch up, and they just get a few hours to catch up and have fun and partake in any Brian Posehn type activities. So I hung out back there for maybe half an hour, but my wife had just had a baby, and I didn't want to leave her alone with this newborn for any longer than I had to, because it's important to sort of trade off and support the work and all that. So, and I'm kind of shy too, so I was feeling kind of done talking to these friends of Brian's. Feeling like I was time to go. Fine. Except, I don't know why, some kind of sense of propriety on the way out. I felt like I had to tell Brian that I was leaving. And now I'm sure that he doesn't even remember this interaction, but I felt so dumb because I totally interrupted him, telling a story to his friends or whatever. They're laughing, having a good time, and I'm like, "Hey Brian, hey, thanks for again, but I'm leaving," mid-sentence. And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool." I guess that's it, but I felt dumb. I guess that might be one of those stories that seems really interesting in your own head, but then when you tell it out loud, it's not that interesting, right? Okay, so number 5. I don't even know where to start with this one, but first of all, I think I'm gonna have to come up with some sort of pseudonym for this guy because a lot of reasons. I've heard he's litigious. We'll call him Gary Snowball. I was living in San Francisco. I was sometimes going out and doing open mics, trying to get used to doing stand-up comedy. It was not good, but that doesn't have anything really to do with the story. I was at this club and there was nobody there, right? It was like, and that's what I loved about it. You could go and like practice talking into a microphone, but mostly you're talking to a dark club, and maybe there would be like a couple other comedians who are also mostly just looking at their own notes and not listening to you. And sometimes I'd go like on music night and pretend that I was a musician and then just like rant about stuff with no intention of playing a song on the guitar that was on my lap. People did not enjoy that. Anyway, there's nobody there, just me and a friend, same friend who worked at that Super 7 store, Josh. And we were hanging out. He just wanted to come watch me try to do stand-up. And this guy goes on stage and he's clearly like more comfortable than anybody that I've seen at an open mic. And I mean, in retrospect, was his stuff killing? You know, probably not. I was just like so enamored, like, wow, this guy is not nervous at all, like at all. And then I start to place him and remember that this guy was on Comedy Central a lot when Comedy Central was just like reruns of Love American Style and a lot of stand-up, you know, a lot of sort of anthology stand-up shows. That guy looks all right. And I was like, oh, I remember this guy. He was like one of these comics that was on all the time on Comedy Central. Let's see here. What kind of nose are we going to give this person? And I won't go into his shtick or act or anything because then it'd be probably too obvious, but he was just there. And I think after knowing more about this guy, he was like on the cusp of being the next whoever, you know, comedian you want to say that's like a household name. The industry was like prepping for this guy to be that next guy. Robin Williams, Steve Martin, you know, Dana Carvey, whoever you want to say. This guy would be kind of funny with like a little soul patch here. What else do I want to say about this dude? But I didn't know all that night, right? I just knew, oh wow, this guy's like a professional comedian. What's he doing here? So we go next door to this bar that was next door. And this guy, Gary Snowball, walks in soon after we did. And I was like, oh, hey, good set, you know, comedians speak. Thanks. I said, okay, can we buy you a drink? He's like, okay. He orders his specialty drink. And he was super, like I was saying earlier, very aloof kind of celebrity thing where he was keeping his distance, you know, not chatting with us too much. But at some point he asked what we did, and my friend Josh said that he works at Super 7, and he's like, what's that? And he tells him about the toys and all that stuff. And then this piques Gary Snowball's interest. He's like, oh, maybe you could do something for me, and this is what I want to do. And after about 20 minutes of talking to Josh, I think he figured out that Josh wasn't going to be able to help with this kind of things that Gary Snowball wanted to do. So then he's talking to me more, and he's like, "What do you do?" And I said that I was like an illustrator animator. And then he's really, interested in talking to me, and he takes me outside, and he's like, "I want to show you this." Out front of the bar, he shows me his phone, and he's like, "Well, I've been working on this project for this pilot, and maybe you could, if I need somebody to take over on this animation." How's that? Okay. And, back then, I guess I drank more. I guess I don't drink at all anymore, but I was drunk-ish and excited to meet this celebrity, and I was like, I trust your judgment, and you're a funny dude, and there's that pen. And I'll help you with this thing that you're working on. He was catching me at a good time when I wasn't in dire need of work and didn't have a job. And my busy season had just ended. So I was like, sure, I'll, dedicate a couple weeks to helping this guy. And I was like, you could, maybe give me feedback and kind of help me get my foot in the door with comedy, Give me feedback on what I'm doing wrong. Because I had never talked to any other comedian about, comparing notes. He's like, cool. So he sends me, oh, by the way, that was the dumb thing that I said to a celebrity. Anyway, next day he sends me what he's got so far on this animation, and you open up the file and it's this huge mess. It just looks like a dozen people had worked on it, all these different assets and embedded things and layers and no names on any layers. It was just a huge mess. And there's different art styles, I think, in it too. It just seemed very a lot of people had their hand in this thing. The other thing was this guy was not reachable or not going to reach out to me before 2 in the afternoon, which is not unheard of for stand-ups, but that's where we were at. And then once he was up, it was just super imperative that the stuff that he wants done gets done right away, and he would want to have me take the bus out to his neighborhood, and he would want to watch me make the art or animation or whatever, and he would basically try to be my art hand, my left hand. So the work dynamic right away was not good. And he would ask for strange things for me to do, not that strange, but as far as the art that he was asking for, a lot of it wouldn't make any sense, and there was a lot of trying to figure out what he was talking about, a lot of explaining why this kind of thing that he's talking about wouldn't work. And he's very clingy, needy, manic type guy again. And at one point, it came up that I know Rob Rieger. Now, Rob Rieger is the guy who came up with Emily the Strange. He ran that whole company that's his intellectual property. He's a super nice guy and just super chill, and he lives in the Bay Area. And so once he found out that I know this guy, he's like, you got to introduce me to him. This is the perfect... let's see here. What can we do with this guy? Kind of funny if he had like a cane. So I emailed Rob and was like, this guy wants to meet up with you, wants to meet you. And Rob was like, yeah, it's fine, you know. So we set a date and took the BART out to his house. I guess what was appealing about hanging out with this snowball was that it was very like unpredictable. You know, sometimes he would say something really odd or out there and like funny and like mess with people, you know, in a just goofing around sort of way. Kind of like if you were, I don't know, you picture if you were hanging out with Conan O'Brien, you know, he'd probably be talking to people all the time on the subway and whatever. So this guy was like that. So that was kind of fun. But also he would turn on you. So this cane got huge. Maybe his pinky could be out here and the cane could go like this or something. I don't know. So we go out to Rob Rieger's house. We hang out in his basement and we're just chatting and drinking beers and everything. And at one point, Rob goes, hey, you guys want another beer? And we're like, sure. I'm worried about this hand here, sorry. I know it's a super weird cane. The scale isn't there, but what are you going to do when you're direct drawing, right? What are you going to do? So anyway, Rob goes up to get a beer, and this guy, Gary Snowball, says, dude, you know, he was like super pissed. He goes, I was about to drop the hammer on this deal that I'm trying to figure out. And, you know, I was going to ask him something super important. And you talked, like I paused for a second and you talked and just threw everything off. I was just like, oh, okay, sorry. You know, it was just normal conversation timing. It was like this guy, Snowball, would talk about something, small talk, and then he would not talk. And I would chime in and be like, oh, hey, Rob, you got this book. Don't you love it? I love that book. You know, that kind of thing. Nobody else was put off by my chatter. He's like, don't talk anymore. Got just super serious. By the end of the night, somebody suggested that we, you know, a change of venue. That we go to like a bar nearby. And so we do like a bit of a hike to get to this bar. And then we're hanging out there for a while. And how did it all time out? It was like Gary Snowball ordered a pizza, which I've had at that point never done this. I guess I have now, but you're hanging out at the bar. They don't have food, so you just order a pizza and have them deliver it to the bar. That's what he did, and we somebody looked at the time and realized that Bart was about to turn into a pumpkin. If you have never been to the Bay Area, you don't know what that means. It means the light rail, commuter train no longer runs after, I think it was like 11:30 or something p.m. Shuts down, which is a shame. I think if you're in New York or something, you can be on the subway anytime that you need, and I'm basing that solely on watching the movie The Warriors. Anyway, we realize, oh crap, we have very little time to get on a BART train before we're stuck out here for the night. And we don't want to try to be asking to be crashing at Rob's or anything. So Snowball goes, the pizza man is going to be here any minute. I'll just give him a big tip and beg him to, give us a ride, and he'll give us a ride to the BART station. And I was like, oh, okay, we'll give that a try. Well, he did, and it worked, and next thing I know, we were in the back seat of this, I don't know, 70s era Honda, all trashed and Taco Bell wrappers and everything in the back seat. I think there was a bunch of pizzas to be delivered in the front seat, so we're both sitting back there in the back seat. But the driver gets his big tip when we get to BART, and that was weird, but it worked. Let's just say it was the next day. Don't really remember the timing of all this stuff, but I told Snowball that maybe this wasn't going to work out, I think the next day he was yelling at me about other stuff. He had this character, and I don't want to give too much away, but it was it was not a human character. It wasn't an animal. It was nothing that you could look at and say, oh, that character is definitely this tall. And it's hailing. This character, definitely would be this tall next to this other human character, There's just no specific sense of scale to the stuff that he was doing. So I took liberties, I guess, and he was yelling at me for... He's like, why would you make the character this short? He's all short next to this other character. I was like, I just threw them together, and with the camera angle, one would be lower anyway. It doesn't really. But why would you do that? But why would you do that? And he was just berating me. I was like, I don't think this is gonna work out. All right, what do I want to do with this black one? Maybe I'll skip that one for now. So I'm like, I don't think this is going to work out. I think that you should, find somebody else to make your cartoon. Oh, sorry. He would do what I've come to learn as I've grown older is a pretty common manipulation tactic, and that's to just do or say whatever it will take to get the person to do what a narcissist wants. Have you ever met anybody like that? They will be super sweet and give you stuff or whatever, And if that doesn't get them what they want, if you don't do what they want, then they'll get mad, just blow up at you, try to make you feel guilty, whatever it takes. They will say and do anything to get you just to do what they want you to do. That's what this guy would do. And so I broke it off with him, I guess you'd say. And then, you know, he would just call and bother. Oh, and then at one point he was like, could you just come out to the coffee shop again and just show me, you know, what I need to show the next person to have them take over this project. You know, don't leave this all like hung up with what you've done to it now. And I was just like, oh, fine. He wore me down and I had a rebound and went back out. And this whole time my wife thought I was nuts for hanging out with this guy, by the way, because I would complain about his weird behavior. I'm trying to keep my pinky out of here so we don't smear. When in doubt. Well, I did that thing, and I you know, showed him what he needed to know to. I wonder if I might get him back to this. Sorry, I showed him what he needed to know on the animation. We were done. And he was still like kind of making me hang out longer than I wanted to, and just could do one more thing, do this last thing. Could you just do this? Just like the manipulation tactics of a pro, you know, somebody who's done this a million times. Oh, great. We live near a large area of paved land, and everybody in town knows that it's the place to go to peel out when it's raining. Yay! Good times. Well, that was the last time I hung out with Gary Snowball, but every once in a while he would like text some giant string of texts or leave a voicemail. And one time he left this long voicemail and was like, I'm here right now at blah 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 bar with beloved top tier household name celebrity. Why don't you, you know, come on by. We got a whole bottle of wine that we have at the table. Just come out and hang out, and I'd love for you to be around for this project to, you know, come to fruition or whatever. You know what I did? Nothing. I hung out with my wife and ate naan and drank wine or whatever we would do. So I did not take him up on that. Kind of looks like Ozzy for some reason. What else can we do with this? Well, it was a good learning moment hanging out with Gary Snowball for that couple of weeks, because at some point, probably months later, I realized why, like, he seemed oddly familiar, and I just clicked with like wanting to hang out with him. He had whatever personality type as my uncle, Uncle Dan. Uncle Dan was a guy that was, I think he's like 7 or 8 years older than me. So growing up, he was often the only babysitter that my mom could muster, or I don't know, for some reason I ended up spending a lot of time with crazy Uncle Dan, we called him. And it was that same thing where he was often super funny and fun and kind of, unpredictable and wild. I don't know why this hand only has 3 fingers. Oh well. He would do weird, unpredictable stuff that as a kid you just think is hilarious, like, I don't know, one time he found my brother's like rocket set, those rockets that you'd buy when you were a kid, and you would go practically out to space and then take pictures and then parachute down, and maybe you'd still find it, maybe not. But it was all about just like exploding something into the sky. I don't know if toy shops really sell those anymore. But he found those and he's like, let's light these off. And he didn't understand the science of it at all. And, it turned out you needed like some electrical charger launching system for them. And we just had his Bic lighter. So he set them all up in the fence at the local park in like the baseball diamond and tried to get it to go off. And it didn't work. Anyway, so that wasted all my brother's rockets. I don't know if I ever told him that. But I think that's where I got the thing of wanting to hang out with sort of your unpredictable dudes. Because then he'd go dark a lot too, and he'd have like weird temper tantrums and whine at his mom, my grandma, who he always seemed to live with. And then there was that time that he showed up at our house and thought he was Batman. And that's another video that I already recorded, so maybe you can go find that one. Can't really recall which one it is right now. Okay, that's fine. But I learned that I have this sort of tendency where if I'm not careful, I can get caught up in trying to please or wanting to hang out with people that have those kind of personality quirks, we'll call them, Well, let's see here. We're an hour in, and I've told the story of, let's see, I've drawn only guys. That's no good. Well, this could be anybody here in the green, I guess, right? Have you ever hung out with people where you're like, what was I thinking? Why was I around that person? I think we all have that, and I'm sure I was that person to people through my youth and adulthood, and I just want to apologize to anybody who may feel like that. Had my own issues growing up and into adulthood, and oh man, I was such a weird idiot when I was in my early 20s, especially late teens, early 20s. I was like, I had some issues, like what do we say about the issues? I think what it comes down to is when I was a kid, I was almost like a feral kid, Let's see here. I want this. White paint. I was like a feral kid, like in The Road Warrior, that kid that would tunnel through the dirt and throw sharpened boomerangs at people. I mean, of course that's an exaggeration, but I just mean like as a latchkey kid. I was a latchkey kid back when most people would hear that and think it was some kind of, Jerry's kid kind of thing where he got some kind of nervous problem. No, latchkey kid is, we all know now, as everybody's divorced, somebody who has to go home and let themselves in to their house without a grown-up being there. And then I would spend like a few hours on my own. What can we do with this person? So I think the thing is, I was sort of a weird kid. Like a lot of people are weird kids, but I also was kind of probably the greasy, stinky kid a little bit because my mom just wasn't really paying attention that way. And, distracted with working and having some kind of social life and all that. And she was always on the phone. So stuff would slip under the radar, and I'd go to school wearing my pajama top, which was way before that was cool. You're in 3rd, 4th grade wearing a threadbare pajama top with like football numbers on it and stuff. Oops, I forgot to put on a shirt today, Point is, I was odd enough that I really didn't have a lot of experience talking to people for any length of time. And by that I mean mostly, women, girls. Until, high school I started getting better at it, but then I had a lot of bad skin and everything, and that kept me from being any kind of swinger in high school. So it wasn't until I turned like 18 and all of a sudden my skin cleared up and I was clean and I had good hair, and I was slim but not skeletal anymore. So I kind of was figuring everything out dating-wise and social-wise as I went along. And that made for some weird times. Let's see, what if... Should this guy have a cane too? Maybe I could do it better. I don't know why all these people have cans. Oh, this is supposed to be a girl of some kind. I don't even remember why I launched into that story, so I guess I'll try to concentrate on making this goth look halfway good. And then I lost my good pen again. Well, that's a shame. How did I lose my good pen again? There it is. Nothing like a good, just Uniball office style pen, supposedly waterproof. I didn't mean for everybody to have tin eyes today, but they all kind of do. Well. What else can we do with this person? Still got to get back to that first one I painted just to have some closure on it, right? Okay, I'm going to put my good pen here so that I don't lose it again. And maybe this person will have like some kind of trench coat that also does like a Morticia Addams, Batman kind of move. Were you a trench coat kid? Are you a trench coat kid? I was. I think must have been freshman year in high school. I got a black trench coat, and back then it was pretty likely that your coats were going to have shoulder pads in them. But I left them in because they weren't like your, I don't know, like severe working girl kind of shoulders. They were like sort of add a little bulk down here, more like you were some kind of Mike Mignola character, you know. And it was Aeropostale brand, which I don't know much about. Was that like a Macy's thing? Was that a Macy's brand? Anyway, I loved it, and what happened with that thing? I don't know. I would wear it with everything, and a lot of times back then I had more of like a sort of an NXS Michael Hutchence look, you know. But what if she had like a little dress? What a weird length. It's like proper schoolgirl length. It's probably gonna have to get fixed. What if it was not like that? Okay. My friend back then also had a trench coat, and he was definitely not a goth. He definitely didn't listen to anything like along those lines. He would listen to like Def Leppard, you know, which never a fan, I'm afraid, of that. But anyway, he was mostly, he would dress like that because he was obsessed with the Lost Boys. Remember that? Speaking of the Lost Boys, I totally could not tell the difference between that young guy who was the older teenager who turned into a half vampire or whatever. I really was positive that was Michael Hutchinson from INXS. I was like, there can't be two people who look like that. It's got to be the same guy. These lines aren't working. Anyway, he was obsessed with the Lost Boys, and specifically wanted to be, Kiefer Sutherland. Wanted to be a vampire rocker. I wanted to be a shirtless saxophone guy. That was not meant to be. I think I told the story of this guy already, but Lost Boys friend, I met him. He was walking around while I was walking home, and he was walking around in a homemade cape. Let's see here, what else can we do with this person? And his cape was made out of I don't know if it was like the blinds or just like the cheapest fabric you could get at Joann's. Not hemmed, just like all ragged, and he just tied it around him. And I was like, hey, this is my kind of guy to hang out with. So then I showed him my cape, and we walked around. And the next day we had a class together, and we didn't really realize it. Maybe it was early on in the semester. You have classes with people, and you don't necessarily know everybody or look up from your book. I don't know. But this girl, like one of the popular attractive girls, was like, hey, didn't I see you guys walking around, blank neighborhood yesterday? And I was like, nope. Wasn't doing that. I never lied so hard and fast before. That looks, I'm not happy with that, but I'm just going to go over that with black once it's dried. And let's see here. What else could we do? Just trying to get her to show up a little bit more. I was ashamed. Now I don't care. I saw something on Reddit. I think it was even the goth group on Reddit. Somebody was like, do you feel like people are judging you in your town when, you feel like you can dress how you want, blah, blah, blah. I just thought, yes, I dress how I want, and yes, I feel eyes on me. My wife, too. Honestly, sometimes she'll dress in a way that I think the people around here think that she's not from this country and gets treated noticeably differently, and that's a real wake-up call when you see that live in action. Not really any denying racism when you kind of inadvertently do a Middle Eastern like me look, Middle Eastern like me, that was like a reference to the movie Black Like Me. I'm not saying that I'm Middle Eastern. Well, as soon as that highlight dries, I think I'm going to try to scale this back a little bit. Went a little nuts with the white outline. Then it's not dry. Yay! Gross! Well, I don't know, what can I say? My next one will be better. Nothing like being in a hurry to not let things dry and then it looks all weird. Well, what if she had like a little rocker belt? Break it up a little bit. Good enough. Now I'm going to need to answer the question, why did I make this, like, I don't know, it looks like some kind of Grinch that stole Christmas outfit. Trying to do like a little memory dump of the heroes that I've met and the celebrities and stuff, because I want to get into some new subject matter on my channel. So I thought I'd kind of put a button on the last few stories that I... What am I doing with this? What if it was... It is kind of turning out kind of SantaCon here, but what are you going to do? Anyway, since I've run out of stories, maybe I could run this by you. I've been thinking about special pieces of clothing. You know, like your memories of the favorite jacket or hat or belt or whatever, and do you have any stories that go around, you know, revolve around that? I might try to do something that is more about that, and in addition to drawing goths as much as I can, try to find some time for another outlet. And it might be podcast, or maybe even it'd be nice to do a podcast and then turn the highlights into some kind of YouTube video, you know, exploring my, you know, clothing stories and weird things that happen to me revolving around I don't know, where I got the clothes, what happened to me when I was wearing the clothes, that kind of thing. What do you think? Does that have legs? Nameless project. I have no idea why this guy's wearing a red parka when he's supposed to be a goth, but you know, it'd be kind of funny if, what if it was like he was living in Ohio or something and he had to wear like red mittens and a red coat because that's all he had for winter, and then the rest could be black underneath for when he gets to school, you know. Have you ever seen that movie Johnny Suede with oh god, why am I so bad at names? Brad Pitt. It was like, I think it was the same director who did like Living in Oblivion. I don't remember, but it was almost like David Lynch style weird with this world that they created for this guy Johnny Suede to live in. Oh yeah, no, maybe he's like gonna go on stage and he's like in the Pretenders or something. He's got red pants. That's funny. Red pants and black gloves. Anyway, the reason I bring it up is I was obsessed with that movie when, I don't know, I must have randomly got it from the video store at some point. And there was something about like the world that they created for this movie and the sort of, what were they? They were like subcultures that sort of are based on reality and American culture, but like exaggerated and not necessarily actually going on in the time when this movie came out, specifically like rockabilly and psychobilly. You know, people were obsessed with like, what is that, Ricky Nelson or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. And so this guy was like a wannabe rock star, but it was all kind of in his head, and he was in a band, but it wasn't very good, not going anywhere. And his life just wasn't together, and he was young, and then he, you know, leaves a bar or something, and a weird pair of shoes land on a phone booth. Anyway, something lands on a phone booth and he wants to find out what it is, and he goes and looks, and it's this pair of shoes, and he can't figure out where they came from, and he's like, oh wow, okay, well, but they're like just his style. They're like perfect to sort of complete his look, and then by completing his look, he sort of completes his identity for the time being. I don't know. So I always thought that was a really cool idea, for there to sort of be magic clothes that once you put them on, it changes everything about your life, you know. I'd love to explore that theme further with some podcasts or videos or something, but if you have any thoughts on that, maybe what would it be called, you know? I don't know. Every time I try to draw like the creases in an elbow, yeah, that didn't work out. Every time though I try that, I always hear the voice of my drawing instructor at school, in art school, Barbara Bradley. One time she came over and looked at what I was drawing as we were drawing from the models, you know. She looks at what I'm doing and she goes, "What is this? A symphony of folds?" It's true. I was just going nuts. My wife calls me Renderella when I go too nuts on the detail. I say he's done. Oh, you know what? He needs like some kind of... Let's bring the white back somehow on here. Just goofing around. A lot of the best stuff that I've done as far as illustration jobs and stuff, you know, the concept, I wouldn't have come up with it if I hadn't been just goofing around in a sketchbook and some weird accidents or overlapped happen, you know. Overlapped? You know, one drawing goes into the next and it looks weird. You see it with different eyes and you're like, oh wow, that could be something, you know. This, however, probably not. Why am I going nuts with the white pen? Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Well, it's 1 hour and 30, so I'm probably going to wrap this up in a bit. Maybe try to go to 2 hours. But if you're watching this up to this point, wow, thanks. And let me know what you think. Again, do all the likes and subscribes. It helps somehow. Twitch, I'm still learning about. There's something about bits and stuff. I don't know. Gotta figure out what that stuff means. I'm going too far with them now. Okay, let's go to the next one. This guy's kind of emo or something, huh? Back at him. Okay, whatever. What can we do with this splotch here? All right, well, if you're still watching, congratulations. I'm going to turn this one into a girl that I see like a shape here. I want to go with it because when I was like, I don't know, 18, I was kind of obsessed with the idea of like having a girlfriend that had that sort of Annie Lennox look, you know. You'd see it more often back then. Somebody with like a shaved, super close haircut, maybe it's bleached blonde or something, or black. Or even a little Louise Brooks kind of bob, you know. Or, you know, before that, when I think it was because like in junior high was the height of the short hair on girls movement, because that was like 85, 86. So all the like popular girls and the alternative girls had some kind of shortened, chopped up kind of hair, you know. So when you're young and developing and noticing girls, I think that kind of stuff gets seared into you. Let's see, that's a really low ear for what I wanted to do. What should we do? Should we lower her whole forehead? I guess we have to. Or I could distort it. I don't know. She might be kind of a strange shape, I guess. Trying to practice doing like that sort of choppy Mike Mignola, Warren, what's his name? Anyway, works with Mike Mignola a lot. Sometimes, I don't know. A very direct, choppy look that I like. I'm bad with names. I'm also stalling on that face, but what can you do? Not necessarily goth, but I'm picturing like she'd be wearing like a coat that she got at the Army Navy store, you know, some kind of surplus thing. And it's like maybe it's oversized. Don't make a symphony of folds. Got a million pockets and doodads. Oh, you know what? It probably wouldn't be zipped, huh? You gotta be able to fasten your outfit in the jungle without it making a noise. So they'd be buttons. All right, what can I do with this face? You know, I think I'm gonna try this blue pencil out actually and try to figure something out before I draw it. Sometimes I'll do like ghostly sort of shapes with the pencil or with watercolor or something like that, and then you can kind of start to see things in it and kind of make it up as you go along that way. Well, all right, we can try that. I don't know why, but I'm liking looking over at the screen and seeing how it looks like kind of from afar, or if it's reading good enough on screen. Guess I'm thinking about this girl that I had a crush on in college. College. I went to community college for way too long, sort of just buying time while I figure out what to do with my adulthood. Not really recommended unless you're like going for some specific degree and it's just cheaper to go to community college and get some stuff out of the way. But if you're just kind of around, not sure what to do with yourself, and just spending that $15 per unit on community college classes, it's not really helpful, I don't think. But anyway, I had this class, it was like US history, I think. And there was this girl that sat right in front of me that had this sort of hair. And she was so cute. And every once in a while I'd talk to her. It was a weird class because like the teacher was blind, and so he would just sort of read stuff to people, and if they wanted to leave early, they'd leave early, or if they wanted to not be there in the first place, it didn't really matter. So it was always pretty empty there. Anyway, somehow at some point I got this girl's phone number. Girl, she's a woman, a young lady. And I don't know. I tried calling her. And we, had a decent little chat. And then at some point she goes, "How old are you?" And I was like, what would I have been at this point? 18, 19? She goes, "Oh my God, you're a baby." There's just that chasm when you're, when you're pre-21 versus over 21. There's not really getting over that. Not as a guy. I think lots of guys wouldn't mind going out with a younger person, legally, of course, but girls don't seem to, I don't know, that was sort of like a big roadblock around that age, trying to date or whatever, if you were the wrong age. Why wouldn't you prefer to just go out with somebody who could buy you a drink, or might have a decent job or whatever? I get it. Let's see here. We're not really showing down here. I'm going to move it up. Need some kind of hands, right? Why did I decide to make hands for everybody today? Jeez Louise. I'm just going to do something kind of goofy, because I don't want to, have to prove I'm Michelangelo every time I draw a hand. It's just not really my strong point. This one, we'll put it in the pocket. It's always a good trick. Oh, it kind of looks like she's sitting on something. We'll go with that. Well, something like that. I keep a little test paper nearby so I can test out colors first, or pens, whatever I want to try, so that I don't go in blind. See, that's the trouble with this streaming stuff. I'll have something in mind I want to talk about, and then I run out of stories sooner than I thought. And then you start telling personal stories that are way too... No, it's not that bad. You ever be watching Bob Ross and he'll mess up? Or you think he messed up and then he keeps going and it's fine. You might just see me mess up. I don't know. I'm not as confident about never messing up. Let's see here. What can we do with this girl here? Woman, this young woman. Sorry about that noise. That was a weird noise. So if you use brushes that are, pens that are waterproof, you can do this kind of stuff. You know, go in and color afterwards, after you did the line work. I'll leave a little rim light here so that she doesn't disappear. Every time I do watercolor like this, I think about that same community college, and I took a watercolor class like my first year there. The teacher was kind of a, can you say hard ass on live streaming? Is that okay? And he would, like, if he saw you putting your brushes in the water, he would be like, oh, they're ruined, and he'd break them. I'll ruin them for you. But I was just thinking about it because, like, first year out of high school, you still think that you're supposed to be like a rebel and like do the opposite of what the teacher tells you. And it's just like, once you're in this, some kind of a secondary school or whatever, you're supposed to be learning, and it doesn't really do any good to be a rebel and not listen to what the instructor tells you. Once I went to art school, I was older, I figured out what you do is you listen and you do everything, every suggestion that the instructor tells you for the first half of the semester. Just give everything a chance. And then second half of the semester, you do what you want. And if it implements things that you learned from listening to this instructor, great. If it implements things that you learned from other instructors, that's fine. You're making stuff up, you know what I mean? so that it's up to you. But that way you still give it, a chance to learn something. Don't really want to get into like rendering this again. Just kind of give an indication of maybe a shadowy area. I don't know. My drawing desk is at an angle, almost 45 degrees, so I can see what I'm doing. I'm not looking down like I'm looking out into some field. I can see what I'm doing. And with the watercolors, it makes the water paint combo drip down with gravity, and then you can kind of clean up the bottom, get the last little drops, and then it's set. So taking advantage of gravity. All right, let's see here. I'm going to put a button on this one, and then I'm going to call it good for this live session. If you are watching to this point, wow, thank you very much. Congratulations, or whatever you say. At some point, I hope to be able to make highlight reels from these and do shorter versions. But for now, I have time to do a live once a week, maybe twice a week, and that's it. By the way, I do sell coloring books. They are on my website, benwalkerart.com. So that way you can get like a signed one. Or you can just go on Amazon and get it a little cheaper, but it comes to you right away, unsigned. But I got like package deals and stuff that you can do on my website, benwalkerart.com. I'm also on Instagram, Ben Walker Story. Yes, I came up with my website URL before, when I wasn't Ben Walker Story. And what else? Oh, also, I set up an Instagram account called Let's Draw Goths, at Let's Draw Goths, and I'm going to be posting, stuff like this, but also I'm going to be posting other people's drawings of goths and alternative lifestyle people, your new wavers, your maybe punks, I don't know. The stuff that makes me smile. So if you have old photos that you want to submit for maybe me to draw, you could do that. Message me on there with a photo, or again, if you have a selfie or something, that it can work too. But I just make sure that I do what makes me smile when I'm drawing, and I love the old snapshots, especially, but not exclusively. Also, you can tag that account if you draw goths or etc. And if you want me to put it in the feed, I'll put it in the feed. How's that? I think that works. Maybe one last thing. Maybe I'll just do like a little something like this to show that she's sitting on something. All right, that works. This was going to be something, and what do you think? I guess I got 6 minutes. What can we do in 6 minutes with this thing here? Where's my other pen? Yeah, I always end up putting them in my pockets. Oops. I think my stomach just gurgled on mic. I'm hungry for early dinner. This guy's into the cramps. Got too much stuff in my hands. I should have stopped. Should have stopped earlier. This is not my best work. Well, I am truly, truly sorry for this guy here. We should have never, ever given him a chance. It's just like, what is supposed to be happening with his mouth here? Thanks again for joining me. This has been Let's Draw Goths. I'm Ben Walker Story, and we'll see you next time, Friday. We'll get back to 10:30. I had a medical thing come up out of nowhere today and had to reschedule. Did the best I could, but I'm fine, and I know you're concerned. Thank you for that, and we'll see you next week. All right, bye.